Good morning.
Good morning. It's really dark in here, Reed.
Maybe I should turn the camera on.
No, I like this better. It's so dark. I could just go to sleep. It's telling me unable to display. There, it's on. Oh, we're alive. Yeah, we're fine. So apparently yesterday was a Monday.
Yesterday was a Monday indeed. Happy Tuesday.
Yes, happy Tuesday. Off to a great start.
Oh, amen. Hallelujah, my friend. How's October treating you?
You know, October has been pretty good overall. Got the shop completed. The temperature starting to die down a little bit, so a little more pleasant to be outside working on things. I mean, really, a month ago, it would have been impossible to be outside working on anything for more than an hour at a time. So, yeah, October's pretty good. I need to actually be taking advantage of it more.
Yeah. Well, leave it to Texans to let it take less than 24 hours for them to transition from, oh, I'm ready for it to be cooler, to, oh my gosh, it's so cold.
Yeah. By the way, I am one of the people that never, I don't like the cold. I don't like winter, which is one of the reasons I live in Texas.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm always pissed off whenever it actually gets cold here. And everyone's like, oh, it's snowing. Isn't that great? And I was like, no, this is awful. It means it's cold outside.
Yeah, and for those of you at home, just for reference, in Fahrenheit is around dropped to like 45 or something like that overnight, and maybe a little bit in the morning, but still warmed up to 70, 75 during the day.
Yeah, it's still pretty warm during the day. Like the funny thing is, of course, my nature is to when it gets below 80 to walk around with a jacket on. And so, it's, I'm one of those people, and then have friends, of course, who live, I don't know, far north, Pennsylvania, Chicago or something, and they just wear shorts all the time, even when it's below freezing outside, and I can't fathom that.
Well, it's really, you'd be surprised about how quickly you adapt, and that's, one of the cool things about the human body is your frame of reference, changes a lot faster than you'd think. And the reason I know this is because I've now lived in Texas, and then I lived in Tucson, Arizona, which is very hot and desertous. I lived there in the summer. And then I also lived in Los Angeles, which some tout as like the perfect weather. It's and that's when I got really soft. If it went out of 68 to 75, outside of that range, you get uncomfortable. You're like, oh, it's hot, and you're like, come on, Reed, you're better than this. It's only 82. Why are you hot?
I know. Yeah, you used to live in Tucson where it was 100 all summer.
Yeah, but you get used to it really fast. It's actually somewhat surprising. So, just real quick, let's recap what we talked about yesterday, which was Monday, and which was one episode before today, which we talked about something that Ryder's going to help me remember here.
Yeah, we talked about tourism. And we kind of went off on some fun little tangents, but I think overall we were mostly talking about sort of travel and getting outside of your bubble. We talked a little bit about some sort of immigration issues, but also visiting other countries and people taking, getting weird about that, like thinking that because Mexico has, a certain problem that you're going to then have that problem happen to you, so you just write off an entire country.
Yeah, extrapolating one or two things from a certain country and then writing off the entire country.
Yeah,
right?
just like, well, in 1992 there was a bombing there, so I'm never going.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh boy,
Yeah, I heard in Texas there's guns, so I'm never going there.
Yeah, right, the country of Texas. Yeah, I was listening to an audiobook yesterday, and the guy brought up that he was from the country of Texas, and it just kind of made me chuckle.
It's the best country in the U.S.
It's a yes it is.
And for those who aren't aware, Texas actually used to be a country, which is what makes the joke that much better,
Yes, yeah. No, it is kind of funny how we just sort of, my father-in-law has a tattoo on his arm that says secede. So, John, if you're listening, send us a picture of your arm.
Send us a picture of your arm. That's a good one. And you know what, Ryder? I think the best way to start off a Tuesday is with the writer close up.
Oh
Uh,
no.
that was the Monday. Now let's transition to the
Okay,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh, so much more happy and exciting. Wow. No, that's just beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I am Reed
boy.
Garcia.
This is Ryder Richards.
And welcome to the show. And today we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to cover multiple topics, and we're actually going to set, should we do 5-minute timer or 10-minute timer?
Let's try a 10-minute timer
10-minute
first.
timer.
We do ramble.
We ramble indeed. Us? What?
Yeah,
No.
I know.
No.
I know that what happens is we say we're talking about tourism, and then we somehow end off onto, like, I don't know, mathematical tangents or something.
We are good at that. We are good at that. Yeah. Oh, and one thing that we definitely did yesterday, which, you know, we're going to make sure to do when we're under the gun and under pressure is, you know, yesterday we were very critical and not negative, but critical, you know, but for basically 90% of the episode. And then we're like, oh, yeah, let's say one thing positive.
One thing positive.
Which kind of can be a trend sometimes, but not always by any means. But let's try and think of some positive things, you know. So when I think of positivity or happiness or something along those lines, what is the first thing that pops into your mind?
I like puppies.
Puppies. That's a good one. Well, you know, I'm glad you didn't take the stock cop-out answer of my wife. Because I could talk about your wife for 10 minutes, but I don't know if you could.
Yeah, I bumped into somebody the other day that was trying to make a distinction between love and passion. And so I've been trying to be a little more clear with my definitions lately. So when I think of happiness, I have a lot of feelings for my wife, and she does make me laugh, and we do have happiness together. But when I think of like a pure bundle of happiness, it's like letting a little puppy crawl around on your face.
Well, I got to say, that was very, very remarkable save there. Good job. Way to really bring it back in.
Just, by the way, honey, still love you.
Not just happiness, but joy.
Oh, unbridled. Puppy passion.
Yes, all right. So let's talk about some puppy passion. We've got 10 minutes on the clock here.
Okay.
Ready, set, go.
Wait, are you going to talk about it, or am I?
Oh, man. Let's sit here for 10 minutes and discuss about it.
Puppies.
Yeah. So let's start with this one. When did you first, I don't know, start to like puppies? We heard on a previous episode, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, that you're more of a cat person than you are a dog person, although you didn't used to be that way. So give us your background on dogs.
So used to have dogs when we were growing up, and cats, right? We always had two kinds of animals. The unfortunate thing about this is that my mother tended to get these cockapoos or poodles or something like that. Those were never really my favorite.
The tiny,
dogs.
fluffy kinds?
Yeah. It was more along the lines of I kind of like golden labs or something like
Although
that.
I'm curious, when you pictured happiness, did you picture the small, cute, fluffy ones, or did you picture a medium, the big one that you're playing fetch with or something?
Honestly, I pictured a fat little golden lab puppy that was just squirming around.
Okay, so you combined the best of both worlds. You took the small size and the cuteness because of the puppiness.
I made them so cute. It was the cute, you know, they're all furry and wiggly. And,
that's funny.
It just feels good, you know, and it's just like, you know, and what I also find fun is when you drop into the little lower register, you start doing the baby talk.
Yes.
And you see them.
Oh,
where does that come from?
I don't know. I'd love to know about that baby talk because that's something that, you know, honestly, sometimes I feel is kind of condescending, but I know it comes from a good place, and I think I guess that's one of those things. Is that and like okay I'm like half finishing sentences here because my brain's going 7 different ways. But we were talking the other day about I don't remember if this is on air or off air, but talking about these psychologists who went and looked at these villages that weren't developed yet, right? And they hadn't been exposed to the modern world. I wondered, do you think they would ever talk to a dog or a baby or a puppy in that tiny up high voice, or is that something that's just been so ingrained to us because you know our mom did it or our aunt did it or we saw it on TV or whatever?
No, I mean those are excellent points. I would assume that it's learned behavior. I tend to think that most human behaviors are learned behaviors. I know we have some mechanisms in there, but yeah, I think that there becomes, what I find weird about it is it's almost instinctual. After you've seen other people doing it to babies and to cute objects and whatever else, then it's like whenever you feel that something is cute, you end up mimicking that behavior. Like I don't like when we're in Japan, for instance, then they would, you know, they have a certain voice they greet you with, and it's that, Ohayo gozaimasu. It just really, and I'm just like, Ohayo gozaimasu. And of course my wife is like, that's not how you say hello. It's like I'm saying the exact same words. And they're like, nope, it doesn't work that way. Like it's all about tonality and voice inflection. And of course that makes me also think about sort of Valley Girl slang, right? Or whatever, which of course guys do too. But ending on a question mark every sentence, and and like I wonder where these sort of affectations come from. But yeah, no, the baby talk one is weird, and it would be funny if you went to like a tribe that had never been around anything like that, and this instant a baby comes out, they all go.
Well, the important thing to know for those of you at home is you're probably wondering, how does Ryder normally talk when he's not on a mic? And he normally talks like this. This is how he talks all the time. So, hello, Reed. Good morning. How are you?
Hello, Reed. Very serious.
Yes. So the dogs, so it is interesting how when you think cute, and I think maybe even just the word cute has some connotation to kind of smaller or tiny or whatever. It's like, oh, that's a cute thing versus, oh, that's beautiful or that's pretty or something along those lines. It's funny how these little words have those subtle differences, right? But with the dog, so did you have some dog when you were growing up that was a medium-sized dog that was this cute little puppers and then it grew up to be man's best friend?
Yeah, I had a puppy at one point that was, and we had, of course, our dogs would get pregnant. I don't think we were intentionally breeding them, but they would get pregnant and we'd have puppies. And then those puppies would end up being either sold or given away to our friends or something.
You didn't practice
like
birth control with your dogs, huh?
No.
It's the dog's choice, I guess. Or
really,
or was it? Can we somehow turn dogs into controversial political conversation?
I'm so nervous right now. This whole topic, I'm just like I don't know what to say here. But yeah. So the fun thing though was, of course, as kids getting to sort of be around animals that had a litter or something, and then like one of them was living in my sister's closet. She had these sliding doors, and so they had these little blankets for it and like a box, and then it was living in there inside there and had the little puppies.
This
is
still a dog, not a person, right?
Yeah, it wasn't my little sister living in there. It was
just making
the dog living in her bedroom. Yes. But yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because when we were growing up, then we were pretty poor, and we had this. At one point, one of my sisters, her bedroom was literally half in and half out of a closet.
Nice.
We just put these sort of drapes along this area.
Privacy dividers.
And, yeah,
nice.
She had like a privacy divider, and her bed literally was in the closet and then stuck out about 2 feet beyond the closet.
It's a couple steps up from a cardboard box, but
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, weird stuff with closets and living conditions.
So yeah. So you had the puppies. What kind of dog did you say?
Oh, like a golden lab.
Golden lab, and you had the litter. Well, then what'd you do with all the puppies? Did y'all give them away or sell them?
Yeah, gave them away, sold them. I only remember that happening once. We of course also had kittens several times.
You've got some brave parents.
Oh yeah, they. I mean, my dad actually, was a big fan of having animals and breeding them. So maybe this is where all this cute puppy and small animal love comes from. Is these?
Did all the puppies have secede tattoos as well?
Well,
secede from the litter.
No. They were actually all born in New Mexico, so they had little Zia symbols and chili peppers and alien
nice.
symbols. Little birthmarks.
What is a
like
Zia
aliens.
Symbol?
Oh, the Zia is the national symbol or the state flag for New Mexico. It's a sun.
Oh, okay.
So it has these. It's a red circle on a yellow background with 4 rays going each of the cardinal directions.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, so for me with puppies, I grew up with a Maltese. Well, and I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was at least late elementary school, middle school, if I recall correctly. I could be completely wrong, but before we got it. And a Maltese, for those who aren't aware, is like anywhere from 4 pounds to 10 pounds, and it's a white dog, very small. And if you've ever seen either a dog show or a movie making fun of a dog show, they have this really long hair that goes all the way to the ground and it's like brushed perfectly and all that kind of stuff.
You mean a movie making fun of a dog show?
Yes. Yes.
There might be only one of those.
Well, I'm glad that narrows it down as to which one they might have seen.
Which one could that be?
I couldn't remember the name of it, so I had to just generically describe it.
We're going to rely on our viewers to help us out on that
one. But we, so this, usually when people keep it at home, they're not going to show the dog. They keep the hair short because who wants to deal with long hair and getting all tangled and things like that. But yeah, I wasn't really completely like gung ho on the tiny dog thing. But after having one for a while, I definitely, and obviously when you think of a puppy and then you think of a tiny dog puppy, they are a little bit more cuter and a little smarter.
So cute.
But they, he definitely grew on me. Our first dog's name was Colada, like Pina Colada because it's white and fluffy. Which reminds me of our second dog's name. Which I jokingly named and it stuck, which was great. Mildly politically correct. Dash Across the Border Garcia. And it ended up being a pretty apt name because not because he dashed across the border, but because he's a very quick dog and he will like run away. Like if you have him off a leash and he's outside the fence, like he's not the kind that immediately like goes away forever. But if you're not careful, he'll run away, right? And so it's like Dash Across the Border Garcia worked out. So we just call him Dash for short, naturally.
Yep.
But anyway, so I liked having the small dog, but then now we have Lincoln, who is a 75-pound rough collie, and you can do the things like throw something for him to go get, and then it can actually fit it into his mouth and bring it back. And, another one, which, the nice thing about the Maltese is they can be a little lap dog. They can hang out in your lap while you're watching TV or whatever, and they're not too obtrusive. The downside is, say they're on your bed or whatever, and this has definitely happened at least once or twice in my parents' household, and then all of a sudden you got to get out of the bathroom in the night to go get out of bed to go to the bathroom. But you open up your covers and you fling them up to go to the bathroom, and then the dog goes flying because he's only 4 pounds, and you got probably another 5 pounds of comforter on you, so you just whoosh, and the dog just gets launched. Well,
so welcome everybody. This is
welcome to the Dog Launching Podcast.
Yeah, I know. This is what we do with cute furry animals. Launch them.
Yes, we do, and we have, fortunately, now that right in the buzzer, just in the nick of time, we have Kenny in the chat who has pointed out that it is called Best in Show.
Best in Show.
That is what we are right now. We are the Best in Show
with Eugene Levy, right?
I think so.
From
yes.
Schitt's Creek, and I think Moira from Schitt's Creek was also in there. There are a couple in Best in Show as well. So
IMDb over here. Impressive.
I actually love that show. Christopher Guest, I think, is a director, and he's also one of the actors in it.
Okay, so you can name literally everyone in the movie, but you can't name the name of the movie.
I knew the name of the movie. I just
you just wanted to let me. Oh, okay.
I just wanted to let you stew. I wanted to actually get some user.
Look at that. Get that engagement
here.
Wow,
man, and it worked. Kenny came through for us.
Yes,
thank you.
I like it. Danielle was pointing out that not only was Colada's named because of Pina Colada, but also because she licked a lot, and so she was a licker. So it was a double perfect name. All right, well, that was the first 5 minutes. I don't know what you guys thought, if it was good or bad. Us neither, but we're gonna go ahead.
It was lovely.
Yeah, I said 5, but I meant 10, and we're gonna go and hop into the next one, which we were talking about small, cute, and baby voices. So let's talk about pregnancy. What do you say?
Oh boy.
Pregnancy. What comes to mind when pregnancy pops in your head?
Is that two dudes should not be talking about this on a podcast. That's the first thing that enters my head.
Oh, that's good. Well, what better way to talk about it than with people who don't experience it,
Yeah, because we have so much insight into it.
Honestly, I've always been looking more for male perspectives for them to explain things to me.
Have you?
Yes.
Well, you know what? The internet is a great place.
Yes. I've been watching a couple of comedy things over the last few days, and one of them was that a guy said, hey, or a woman came up to me, hey, I was trying to figure out, I've heard this term keep going on, it's like mansplaining, and he's like, well, it's this thing, he's like, oh, you got me.
Bam!
You're not going to say that, I'm not falling for that trap.
Yeah.
Kenny wants to know, when was Best in Show released?
Oh, geez. Oh, I'm going out on a limb here. I'm gonna say like 2011.
Ooh, I think that's much later than it was.
It was probably
Yeah.
2002.
Yeah, I was gonna guess
Oh.
04. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
What do we got, Kenny?
Drum roll, please. Oh, unfortunately, our timer did not
Oh
start.
man,
Oh, we got to talk about pregnancy even
for-
longer.
Oh,
You know,
jeez.
it's one of those delayed pregnancies. It's coming late.
2000. What?
Oh, that's way off, man.
Man, I think my second guess was better.
Yeah, it was.
That's usually self-correcting. I'm pretty good about that.
So-
As a man.
So when it comes to pregnancy, Ryder, do you ever have any intentions of becoming pregnant?
You mean like Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie? Never mind. We could skip that. No, I don't, and me and my wife have talked about it. We're not going to do the children thing, which sometimes people ask things like, why? You would be a great dad or something like this. And I usually just try to short circuit the whole conversation with, well, I'm actually super vain and narcissistic and selfish, and no child needs to be raised by me. Because that kind of ends the conversation quickly.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. We kind of talked about it, and it's sort of like, I don't know. Me and my little sister both decided not to have kids. My older
I would
sister
hope you
has
didn't have
two.
sisters, or kids with
No,
your sister.
jeez, no.
Was this the one who
Lord,
stayed in the
no.
closet, or?
Oh yeah, This was.
So your sister
no,
came out of the
wait, hang
closet. Now
on.
you're having babies with her. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, I shouldn't talk about family stuff anymore. Oh yeah, so no, I think there was something about making decisions about all of it, and we just didn't want to do it. And that can be for a myriad of reasons, but of course we have friends who are having kids or accidentally had kids. We have one of my college roommate, Noel. I didn't need to mention his name, but he's a fantastic guy and ended up having 5 kids within, I think, 2.5 years. Had triplets in the middle.
Wow.
And
5 kids.
5 kids, and within a very short time frame. And his wife was keeping a blog for a while, and it was just like, how many fingernail clippings that adds up, right? Things like
I'm
this.
glad you brought up fingernail clippings, because I'm going to throw my mother-in-law under the bus, because we were going through some pictures just this weekend when we were with the family. We were kind of showing some pictures, reminiscing, things like that. And one of the ones came up. I don't remember if it was on her phone or mine, but it was her holding up a baggie of these, little white things, and it was her and Danielle, my wife, and all of a sudden it was like, wait, zoom in on those. Those are teeth. she had kept the teeth from when they were kids, and they'd fallen out.
Oh, nice.
And not only had she kept them, but they were in the storage container for whatever now, 20 plus years. And I'm giving her crap, but she's not alone in this odd thing.
No.
But it's odd to me, and I have no interest in keeping them. But I could see that being a sentimental thing, right?
Yeah, no, it feels like something we did, and I don't know why exactly, but I do feel like we did keep them. And then we also had the tooth fairy that showed up and would give us a quarter.
Well,
or a
okay, the
dollar or
tooth fairy is
something like
involved.
that.
I think it was probably a lesson in economics. So you hold on to the asset. Later on, you can sell it
Right.
for a higher price, right?
Yeah, even if it's just a few hours later, But it was also one of the joys of the tooth coming out, is you knew that eventually you were going to get a quarter or a dollar or something for it, and then so it made it seem more valuable. But I don't know, like that is interesting when we're talking about pregnancy, and then we're sort of shifting into motherhood here of like, what's up with all the weird stuff, right? The one that gets me about pregnancy is when people keep the placenta for a certain period of time, and they'll like freeze
And
it,
not
and
just
then, like,
keep
a
the
year
placenta,
later,
but
cook it or something.
They'll go through a lot of effort or pay a bunch of money, actually, to have it processed into a way where they can eat it. We had a friend who capsulized it and then ate it because I guess that's one of the ways to do it. And I'm like, all right, one, I would really like to see the studies on this, because I'm curious, like, how much that little bit of placenta can really make a difference for you. And two, like, is it really worth all that effort? And also three, like, we made it here this long. I mean, we're probably okay without doing that,
I mean, it is kind of an interesting thing to go back to everything natural, right? It's just like, oh no, this is the way that it was always done in generations previous, and hence we should follow this path. And of course, I'm also thinking of like little things like, yeah, they were also like dying of dysentery
Yeah.
back in that time period as well. So maybe not everything, but yeah, the placenta eating thing is interesting because of course it reminds me of like warriors eating their, somebody else's heart or
Yeah.
something after they win a battle. Like it's really
Lord.
like yeah. But no, I do hear that it has a lot of sort of I don't know, minerals and vitamins.
It's highly
and whatever
nutrient
else you
dense,
need.
right?
Yeah, yeah. And of course I guess that makes a lot of sense, and it would make sense not to waste it. If you didn't live in a world that had so many nutrients, we don't know what to do with it. You could literally hop on Amazon and get a bazillion nutrients
Yeah,
at any point.
it's just having the picture of stressed, tired, pregnant or recently pregnant lady with a fresh kid and just barely making it through the day, throwing away all their leftover food and then taking a bite of their placenta. It's like, oh, we're great.
Yeah, we've got some potatoes for you with butter on them and everything else. No, I'll take this placenta, please.
But no, it is worth pointing out that a lot of the things that we think are gross or weird or whatever, I mean, those are all learned for the most part, right? Besides, there are some things that are like they have evolutionary meaning, right? For example, one of the reasons why poop smells bad is to us as humans is because, hey, you probably don't want to eat that because it could have all these diseases and lead to these issues and things like that. But there are some things in life where and none of them are immediately coming to mind, but like we think it smells bad or we think it has this negative thing, but it really doesn't. But we're just kind of evolutionarily trained to be that way.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Noel, my buddy that I've already mentioned. Well, when you're trying to raise 5 kids at once and one parent has to work all the time, it's tough to keep track of them. And so at some point, then
You need to tag 'em.
a couple of their kids, a couple of their kids ended up deciding that poop was cool.
Oh, nice.
And sort of
How progressive.
playing with it and smearing it all over the walls.
The finger paint
and
we
each
make.
other. Yeah. And so, like, when you're talking about that instantly flashed into my mind. Oh, the joys of having children.
Yes, the joys of having children, and one of the things I want to talk about when talking about pregnancy, because it came up recently when I was talking to a friend, was, do you name the baby in advance? Or more importantly, do you let other people know the names you're considering? Because, that it brings up the phrase, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
Yeah, and they all stink.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know. When it comes to that kind of stuff, normally I just sit and observe and nod my head, but I'm silently judging everything. And I'm just like, oh, really? Like, yeah, we have friends that have named and I'm not even going to bring it up, but they've named their child something that looks like it's spelled one way, but it's pronounced a different way.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, you just made that kid's life really hard.
Yeah.
Well done, parents. I know you think you're being so creative, but you really just made everything difficult. The kid will now always have to explain. There will be a prompt that comes along with the name. Their name can never just be what it is.
Right.
There's a definition attached to it. This is how you pronounce it, and this is what it means.
The worst case of that I had seen was Elon Musk when he named his kid. It's pronounced like Ash, something like that, but it's like X19, and it's got like the special character in there, and it's wow, that talk about making you're already Elon Musk kid, so that's gonna be hard enough, right? But then on top of that,
and Grimes,
right?
So
1-2 punch.
Yeah, sort of I don't know. And if y'all don't know Grimes, she's actually got some pretty catchy songs out there. I actually really dug the songs before I knew that she was somehow, involved in Elon Musk's world. But yeah, like, I guess he had someone will be able to say it, but he has like, the kid was partially named off of like his favorite jet or something.
Oh, right, exactly.
And, it's all these kind of things that I'm just like, wow, well, you're avant-garde parents, and then, like, the kid now has this baggage that they have to carry around with them forever. I'm kind of lucky I have this name Ryder, and it's kind of fun and exciting without being too over the top. Like, people get it, and they can understand it. So it's not, I don't know. You're not calling me Quetzalcoatl or
Yeah.
something.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you think that because honestly, I think your name's crap. It's like, come on, Ryder.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There aren't even horses around anymore. Like, what does he do?
Trucks.
Yeah,
I ride in rider trucks. Yeah.
And what's your last name? Richards? I mean, like, come on. Last names are supposed to say what you did. Like, Smith, like
Yeah.
with a
What
blacksmith.
did I do? Well, Richard, the short slang for it is Dick. So,
Okay. Ryder Dick. I'm gonna assume you've heard that at least one time in your life, but
Oh, yeah.
that's a good one, right? I like that. Okay, well, we are up with our 10 minutes, even though we had 10 seconds on screen. Our other timer went off here, and so now I thought a great topic to switch to off the cuff, which you have no idea about, is soliloquies. So why don't you tell me something, Ryder,
boy.
that's been on your head that you'd like to tell the world, or you just thought of just now? And you know what? As a gift, I will refill your coffee for you.
Oh, joy. Soliloquy.
And I won't make you go the
I
full
like-
10 minutes, but
I like the way it sounds. So yeah, I don't know. My initial reaction is to go to something that's sort of a little more darker and personal. I actually had a friend get fired from her job for bringing up negative criticism of cancel culture. So this is not happy stuff at all. It's kind of fascinating though that, yeah, she wrote an article about progressives actually writing things and getting, basically being attacked, and how neutral people or people that were actually on the side of somebody could slip up and make a mistake and then be canceled for it, and how there has become an attack culture, sort of where people play the victim for power in order to attack other people. And then she got attacked for writing this article and got fired. So that's not a tremendous soliloquy. That's just something that's on my mind because I found out about it yesterday. And it's disturbing to me.
well, first of all, the word is soliloquy, so points off for Gryffindor.
Oh, what did I say?
Soliloquy.
Soliloquy.
That was rather silly of you.
But it was. I'm so tired in the morning. I can't get all those extra syllables in.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The soliloquies.
Well, I think you did a good job fielding that curveball, but let's bring that up. The idea of cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't really see any redeeming quality to it at all. I just think it's something that should be gotten rid of. Like, I don't think it sends a good message. I don't think it leads to good behavior. I think it actually leads to more things being hidden, people doing more things behind the scenes, being less transparent. And that's both people and companies. That leads to people and companies taking less risk. I mean, that's one of my least favorite things about America is the cancel culture aspect and just how litigious they are, which is a fancy way of saying people can sue everyone, right? And, a very common example given for that is, McDonald's got sued for serving hot coffee to somebody because they burned themselves. And then now it's like you have all these warning labels, right? And when I think of warning labels, the and unintended consequences that comes with all of this type of cancel culture and things that come with it is, I forget the number, but it's like Prop 53 or something like that in California, where literally it's a warning that says, hey, this thing or some of the stuff contained in it may cause cancer. And it got to the point where it's like nobody wanted to not have that sign if they were going to somehow get in trouble for something they have. So it literally just got put on everything, like every building you go into, all the products you buy.
So at that point, we're actually just a culture of signs that no one pays attention to.
Exactly.
Because when they become that ubiquitous, they're no longer meaningful.
And then the sad thing is that song, I Saw the Sign and It Opened Up My Eyes, is no longer relevant.
Oh, no.
Like, how? How are they going to... I feel so sorry for that band.
Yeah, what is going to happen to that band now?
I saw
wait,
the sign.
Opened up
Nope,
my
that's
eyes.
it's just...
That was
I saw the
was
sign.
it.
And then
No,
actually,
there's-
they no longer see the sign. That's the version
That's
2.
what I was going to say. They already have disappeared as well, right? They've, because they're talking about signs and we've just stopped reading signs. Not only have the signs have stayed, and I guess their song has stayed, but the band has kind of disappeared. Who did sing that, by the way?
I think it was in Best in Show. in the year 2015.
Was it Ace of Base?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was.
Oh,
nice. Well
nice.
done.
Woo.
Man, dude,
Yeah.
you're really good at just knowing the thing, pretending you don't, and then lobbing it up. Oh,
Oh, pow. Well, I'm trying to make you look good, Reed, but you just keep failing.
yeah. Well, when it comes to pop culture, that ain't me, babe.
Pop fly.
So cancel culture and what are some other prominent examples or some prominent examples you can think of where cancel culture has happened?
Oh, I'm not super up on it. What I'm mostly
Real quick, I guess let me actually define what cancel culture is, right? At least how I see it, and I'd be curious to see what you are, or what you think. So the way I see cancel culture is you take you see when somebody, some sort of public figure or company has done something that could be seen as bad or wrong in some way, and then you just say, oh, that person no longer deserves to have anything, and not only that, but they should have this scarlet letter that they have to have on them, so they're basically permanently marred. And now, oh, by the way, especially since we live in the internet age, every time you search their name, that's going to come up to them. And even though this will fade into the background over time, for everyone else, because people move on to the next thing, right? That will stick with them forever, which I think is one of the other bad things. Is like it makes so much sense, right? It's like in such the individualistic culture, all we care about is us and our business and our news. And so you are basically entertaining us by giving us someone to wave our torches at and our pitchforks and say, you suck, let's burn you down to the ground, and then we'll move on to the next thing or the next person. But now that person has to live with it for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and there's something about I think that backlash is coming from a point where, the people with the pitchforks, they really they want to sort of champion some sort of belief system or so. So, I'm thinking immediately of J.K. Rowling,
Okay.
who made some comment about there being, and I'm gonna screw it up, but something about there being gender, or there being sex, or something like this, and it comes across as transphobic, and so a lot of people jumped on that and were apparently trying to cancel J.K. Rowling, which when you're going after these really big celebrities or public figures and they say something like that and you just go, you're wrong, we're going to cancel you. Well, it's really hard to cancel them because of their scale and their size and things like that. And of course there's I've listened to some Sam Harris podcasts, and he's one of these people who talks about how cancel culture works, or how negative media attention works, and how it sort of people can attempt to assassinate your character and assassinate everything you are. And there's something about that tendency to want to destroy somebody who does not toe the line of what you want.
Yeah, it actually. I was just listening to a podcast by Freakonomics. Freakonomics is the podcast, and they're doing a little series on why America and how America is different. And the one I just listened to yesterday, which is maybe like 2 episodes old at this point, if you're looking at it, on today, October 19th, 2021. It was talking about, is the U.S. media more negative than the rest of the world? Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the word choices, both within the article and the headline, and how things went viral, and what type of reactions did it get on social media. Some, especially on ones that are like, oh, you could get a heart, you could get a thumb up, a thumb down, whatever the various reactions are. And they saw that the ones that mentioned the out group, they were more viral, and they saw that ones that had some sort of negative mention, right? Like those got more viral, right? And they did have the positive ones had more positive reactions and things like that. But for example, and in political ones, to give an example, if it's a post that's trying to cater to the Republican crowd, if they mentioned, oh, the left in some kind of negative way, or if they said, oh, Joe Biden, blah blah blah, then those got so much more engagement, right? So it's interesting and troublesome, and one of those things that I think it really takes some companies to rise above, because all of those things, they drive down to that human instinct and that us versus them mentality, which comes all the way back from when we're animals, essentially. I mean, we're still animals, right? And we have our tribe, and it's like us versus them. And literally, like, if you let someone else or something into the tribe, you are endangering the entire tribe. That's where that kind of core instinct comes from. And so when you're appealing to that, like without even recognizing it, all of us as consumers, yeah, that just kind of comes more natural to our to our brain because of the psychology and stuff.
Right. And I do need to like throw out though that I think I kind of understand where cancel culture comes from, and not just in the us them area or range, but it feels like as well that there is a social policing that has have to happen, and things like the Me Too movement, for instance, which pointed out all these men that were behaving horribly, and this has been going on for decades and decades, for all of time, right? And yet, for some reason, there wasn't any sort of public way to or there wasn't a way to take these people down. And so finding your voice in a public forum and using it to actually do some good and to produce some change in the world, well, that's great. But along the way, there's also going to be some people who misuse or abuse
Right.
that power.
On both
right?
sides, yeah.
Right, and there's gonna on both sides. This article I was reading just basically said that there's a kind of narcissistic person that's about 1% of the population. Those people are always going to be jumping in and taking advantage of these situations. So it's kind of difficult to actually sort out the positive benefits from these sort of vocal negative aspects. But I do think public pressure, rather than making more and more policy, is probably a good direction to go. Unfortunately, I just when it gets sort of damaging, you wonder how we reel back from it, because that divisiveness has also manufactured a bigger and bigger split in our nation in general.
Yeah. So last point, since we're out of time here, but the one of the things that the article was saying in the study that they did, he's like, I do not want to imply that, because the host was kind of being devil's advocate. It's like, oh, so tell me, like, should I should start making some more posts about other podcasters that are negative so I could grow in traction. He's like, no, this is by no means a formula. I don't want you to do this. This is not the way. This is just showing how it is right now. And he was talking about, like, well, why isn't there some, moderate news company that's just rising to things? Because, well, that's just because, again, it takes more work and more effort. And, and that's both on the company side and on the consumer side. Like, it takes, like, hey, go away from the big flashing lights with the big, huge, engaging headlines that are all get you all riled up inside, and go and try and find something that has you less stimulated, right? Because guess what? The more they're trying to stimulate and get you going and things like that, the more stronger to one side that message probably is, or the more they're trying to manipulate you and your feelings. Just last note. I've said this about Fox News. I don't care about what side of the spectrum they're talking on. I just despise the way that at least some of their shows are, where it is so loud and it's so angry and it's so yelling and it's so like they use all this strong language where they're turning people into the demons that they're attacking and things like that. And it's just like, if you read like a transcript of that and like have no context as to what it means, it's like, I just don't want that to be where I get my information from. Like, I could still get really far right information, but not such strong, angry language. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's I mean, one of the things that we I think need to pay attention to now, because one of the podcasts I'm listening to is about sort of principles of influence, and influence and manipulation are slightly different. And what's so great about, sort of, once again, I was talking about distinctions, making a line, like when somebody's influencing you, they aren't necessarily manipulating you, because influence can be by uncovering the truth, but it can become something like that. But manipulation tends to be whenever you're fabricating a point of view for a specific end.
Okay.
So you can influence somebody by sort of saying, by the way, here's the way this happens, here's the way this works, and these are, this is the truth as much as I know it. And somebody can be influenced by that because maybe you're giving them facts. But on the other hand, to fabricate or misrepresent facts so that you can reach a certain goal would be manipulation.
I like that. Now, that's interesting. And subtle, right? But manipulation versus influence. And I wanted to point out, because it popped in my head since you said that, one of the things they mentioned, the guy who did this study, one of the things he did was he created an app where it says, have I shared fake news? Because that's one of the big things that I want to point out is, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, like, I think it's important to recognize that I don't think are willingly participating in a lot of these things and growing in this divisiveness and getting more angry and things like that. You are being manipulated or influenced, whatever word you want to use there, and maybe you have shared some fake news. And I hope you haven't done so knowingly, but I think it's worth checking. Like, hey, have I, of the things I've shared, let's see if I've shared fake news. And then you could be like, okay, maybe incorporate something in your future process before you share things to give it just a little bit more of a check to see, is that something that's true? But let's have a drastic change of topic here.
Yeah, let's change topics.
Yeah.
That one was kind of
Yeah,
sad.
let's get
Sorry
into
about
something
that,
that's much
everybody.
happier. Drugs.
Hey, yes.
What comes to your mind when I say drugs?
Shrooms.
Shrooms. Okay, what are your thoughts on shrooms?
Oh, I guess I've never taken shrooms, never done it. Actually, I'm not much of a drug guy at all, but I don't know. I've been listening to on and off. It's taken me weeks at this point to even get through like the first chapter. But it's Michael Pollan's book. I think it's called How to Change Your Mind, and it's about psilocybin and shrooms and stuff like that. And kind of like Omnivore's Dilemma and everything else, he goes sort of deep into the research of shrooms, where they're from, how they became sort of evolved within our country or culture or something like that, and also what they do with your mind and some of the interesting treatments for them. One of the things I've been sort of interested in, and there's just guys like what is it, Tim Ferriss, and some of these people that have are doing a lot of research in it. And I think Tim Ferriss just gave a pretty massive donation, if I'm not mistaken, millions of dollars, if it wasn't hundreds of thousands, but it's quite a large donation. I think UC Berkeley to help fund a psilocybin research project. So there's people who have taken shrooms, and they claim it to be one of the top 5, top 10 most amazing experiences of their life. Or most, maybe not amazing in a positive way, but amazing in a deep, insightful, profound way that actually changed them.
Yeah. So I want to point out a couple of things with drugs. So the first thing is, in my opinion, drugs are something that everyone has, not everyone, but a lot of people have strong opinions on. And I would encourage people to really dig down and look back and say, why do I feel that way about the thing? Why do I think that way about the thing? Because the reality is when it comes to drug, you're probably strongly influenced by the way you were raised, which includes, your parents and the people around you. It includes what they said to you in school about it. It includes things that you see in media, on TV and movies and things like that. And the truth is that is one area where we, especially in America, have been strongly molded, influenced, manipulated to believe certain things about drugs.
So, yeah, was there a kind of a slogan or some sort of scare phrases that you're recalling right now?
Well, for sure, there was a program called the DARE program, which, again, this kind of goes back to, maybe it goes back to our puritanical pastime and the tie between church and state that doesn't exist, quote unquote. But yeah, and there was this DARE program that was at least in effect when I was growing up. I'm not exactly sure the years of operations, but and it was an acronym, stands for something I can't remember off the top of my head, but essentially the message was drugs are bad, don't ever do them, right? Yeah. Which tends to be the message for anything that's kind of on the edge, right? In America,
yeah,
it's
there was this idea at the time where it was like dare to be different. It was
okay,
like, it was actually trying to capture sort of the rebellious side, right? Which is kind of funny,
ironic. It's like, how do we appeal to these youths?
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing that when I was going to church has always tried to be cool about something, and you're like, you're just not cool.
Yeah,
that's not the point of church. Yeah,
but yeah, it's funny because whether it's drugs or another one is sex, right? It's like, it's not let's teach you more about these things, how to use them, they can be safe, how they can be unsafe. No, it's just, this is absolutely not a thing. Don't ever do it. Don't have sex. Don't do drugs. And it's like, you guys realize you're talking largely to teenagers here, and you're literally doing the one thing that is going to encourage them to do it the most.
Well, I don't know. It might, because once again, I don't really participate in recreational drugs, so it's kind of like, like there's this kind of side of me that's sort of like, I'm just fine.
Yeah. Well, I guess let me ask you that.
I never think about it.
Was that an intentional choice, or is that just kind of how it happened?
I'm kind of thinking there is so I think it's a mix, right? I think that I was programmed when I was young. And then I think on top of that, I've had some like mediocre experiences trying to get high or something, and haven't been thrilled with it because I wasn't in comfortable situations, and not the right mind frame, all these kind of things. So I think that there have been a couple of occasions where I've tried something just because I thought I was gonna, like, I don't know, have a profound experience or be cool or something, and I'm just infinitely not cool. So drugs just make it
over
work.
and over
Yeah,
bounded.
right. This is it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of fascinated as well because from psychological child development, there is a phase in which if people don't develop certain mechanisms, then they won't have them as they move into adulthood. And sometimes drugs can actually stunt some of those mechanisms. And this is one of the things I've heard about or read, and this would be things like, alcohol or getting too much pleasure in a certain way at a certain time sort of sets these pleasure loop centers in your brain so that you're then always craving this extreme of pleasure or something like that. And it's really hard to unwind from. So this is what I've heard. I can't even cite the study on it, so I probably shouldn't even be bringing it up. But it is kind of an argument for needing to make sure that people get to a certain age before they're sort of free to start making these choices.
I'm very glad you brought that up because I would agree completely that I don't think people should be experimenting with this type of thing, especially at a young age, right? And I would encourage lots of education on it. And the beauty is, in this day and age, there is more information than there's ever been. And as Ryder mentioned, there's more and more studies that are being done on this type of thing. And by the way, I'm sure we'll talk about drugs many other times other than just this 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, one of the things is to mention that it can mess with your development, right? So you want to make sure that you're not doing it too young. But one example I wanted to give is it's kind of culturally how it's viewed and things like that and how you can and can't use it. One example I like to point at is alcohol, which, by the way, alcohol is a drug, which a lot of people, and also caffeine is a drug.
Yeah.
These just happen to be socially acceptable drugs, right?
Sugar is a drug.
Yeah. Social media, you could also be considered as a drug, right? But all these things are just things that our culture has deemed culturally acceptable, and so therefore, it's not a big deal, right? So I want to point that out because whether or not you realize it, that's how it is, right?
So we tend to always think that we're talking about illicit drugs, but there's also legal drugs, and interestingly enough, if it's a prescription, it's fine.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because prescription drugs is a whole big topic in and of itself, right? And then you get to, what makes something illicit or not? And there's two aspects. One, what does the culture, what do people think about it? And the other one is, what does the government say about it, right? And right now is an interesting time in history because we have marijuana more talked about and discussed and more probably used than it's ever been in the past. And you have some states where it's legal, some states where it's not. It's still federally legal. And you had things where even early on where like people had to, or companies literally had to have briefcases of cash because the federal banks wouldn't take their money. And so things like that, right? And then you have these interesting things where it's like, oh, yes, this is an amazing drug that you can use to help people sleep, be able to eat when they have issues trying to have an appetite and make them feel better. And
pain
it's
reduction.
And it's a natural, on and on of all these possible things you could do. But since we only have 2 minutes left, I just want to mention a couple of things. Which one, you alluded to a couple of the things that how people do drugs the wrong way. What I'll say, which is one, dosage. Dosage is probably the single most thing that is done incorrectly. And it's because it's never talked about, because it's illegal, and it's because, how it happens a lot of times is, hey, you want some of this. And it's like, first off, I don't know, or maybe, and it's like, where did that come from? All those types of things, right? And so that's one of the benefits, for example, of marijuana becoming legalized. You can know not only where this came from, but it's a very pure thing. And you can even see on the side, this is the percentage of THC that it has in it. And that you can have all of these things that are very well controlled. And especially when it comes to things like edibles or whatnot, you can say, I want just 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams. Yeah. So dosage. And another common one is dosage over time, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, for sure. And I am happier now that there are at least some conversations about this. This is kind of interesting as well that they've got it down to this milligram dosages, because I think, depending on what kind of weed you were trying to smoke and where you got it from, who knows?
And also what method you were doing,
yes,
and how it was put together, how much you had eaten before, how much water you've had.
Or if your buddy just put a bunch of sage into it.
Right.
It wasn't actually weed at all.
Right. Had it been cut with anything.
Right.
But yeah, so real quick, I will mention again on one of the episodes earlier, I don't remember which one off the top of my head, we mentioned the show Cooking with Cannabis. And so I'd encourage you, especially if you're someone who's like, drugs, grr, go check out this show. And it's not so drug forward in your face. It's a cooking competition show that they happen to be using marijuana in as well. And it's interesting, and you can learn a lot, and they tell you about some of the benefits, and they have different stories about how it's played into people's lives. So maybe check that out. But yeah, one of the things I also wanted to talk about, so we had dosage. Another one is environment, right? And state of mind.
Yes.
State of mind is an important one. Like it is not recommended for people to take psychoactive drugs if they're in a really negative space or they're in a really bad spot, right? You know, one thing you hear when it comes to mushrooms, for example, is a good trip or a bad trip. And it's like, so you don't want to take something that's going to mess around with your brain if you're in a very unstable spot. And, you know, on one hand, it kind of makes sense. It may seem obvious, but it can't be overstated. Like, just be aware of what you're doing. And also do it in an environment. That's the last one that I wanted to talk about, was doing an environment that you feel safe, you feel comfortable. Ideally, you have somebody who has, if not experience, ideally experience, but if not experience, at the very least, they've done a lot of research from good sources, which we hope to be for people in the future and point people to other solid sources where they can go deeper. But you know, having somebody who's like, hey, okay, here's the things, like, you're going to feel this and you're going to feel this. And guess what? If you feel this one thing, like, that's normal. Like, that happens. That's just one of the side effects of using the thing, right?
Yeah. And that was one of the things with shrooms is, you know, and we're talking here about people, there's a difference in taking something recreationally, going to a concert and trying it for the first time. Might be the wrong place, wrong environment. It also might be trying to fuel it through rebellion, but this might be a drug that's better taken for personal insight, and then having a guide who, whenever your ego starts to dissolve, instead of you freaking out because you're losing yourself, you could actually just ride the wave into the other realm, right?
And that is where the name Rider came from.
That's it. Riders on the Storm or whatever. Yes.
Well, that has been our 10 minutes on drugs. Hopefully you guys have, you know, maybe thought about a thing or learned a thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more. I know we'll talk about that a little bit more. Ryder, do you have any? So yesterday we were talking about travel and tourism, things like that, and our challenge yesterday was to, you know, see what kind of souvenir that you have, maybe something that's gathered some dust, or maybe you have it hiding somewhere, or maybe you want to change out one thing you have on display for something else, or perhaps maybe it's just printing a picture. So that was one of our challenges that we had for yesterday. What about for today? You know, in our little grab bag of topics, do you have anything that pops into mind? I mean, we talked about dogs, we talked about drugs, we talked about pregnancy. I'm exhausted. Yeah. Me too, buddy. Me too. Well, we had our camera stopped working on my battery thing. I had that plugged in, stopped working. So now I had to go off the battery, and of course is causing issues. But anyways, we were talking about the hey there, a little bit wider
everybody.
Angle. But yeah, so we talked about drugs, we talked about pregnancy. What else?
I think the challenge today is go out and get pregnant.
Go and get pregnant on drugs.
On drugs.
Get pregnant on drugs.
Of course, and share it on social media.
And then get your dog high too while you're at it. And tag Helpful Fly.
Whoa! Yeah.
No, please don't do any of those things. We talked a little bit about cancel culture.
Yeah.
Any challenges immediately pop into mind?
No, I think the interesting one for me right now, one of the things I'm going to be dwelling on is this cancel culture aspect, and just thinking about it, because I understand that there are some benefits to social pressure to get people to behave correctly, and when I say correctly, basically not abusing other people, which is funny because what we're talking about there is coercion, and now there's a coercive force on the left as well. So, you know, if we're into tolerance and diversity, where is that line? You know, I don't know. This is a complicated topic, and I feel like it's dangerous to talk about it, and that's in itself is scary.
It's
scary
funny. It's
when
like
you can't even meta-analyze the topic.
Yeah, the one thing you don't want to talk about too much in cancel culture, because then you get canceled, right?
Yes.
But I also want to point out, it's not just political when it comes to cancel culture, right? People have
no,
all sorts of reasons for canceling. So, okay, I thought of our challenge for today, which is, a kind of a trend amongst all these things, right? With the pregnancy, the cancel culture, maybe not so much the puppies, but maybe a little bit. And then the drugs was, what is some sort of belief or something that you have, right? That could be something on a topic, whether it be drugs or politics or something like that. Or what is something that you've thought of a person, right? And maybe it's because they did drugs, or maybe it's because they decided to name their kid Ash ACD 472. What is something that you have an opinion on that when you think about it deep inside, you're like, huh, why do I really think that thing? Where did that come from? And my challenge for today is to look into that a little bit, question it a little bit more. And if you are someone who's way strong against drugs, like, okay, ask yourself, all right, well, why do I think that? And where did that come from? And is there a possibility that maybe I can shift a little more towards the middle on that topic? Doesn't matter if you're left, doesn't matter if you're right, doesn't matter if you're up or down, but the reality is in the world, the truth is often in the middle. So what is one of those things that you've done where you could shift a little bit towards the middle? And even if it's just forgiving your daughter for naming their kid something weird, right? And maybe you could lean into it and be like, all right, we're going with this. The kid's name is Stick. So what are some fun things we could do with the name Stick?
Yeah. I've got nothing.
Nothing. Good. Start smart move there, Ryder Dickards. Well, with that, this has been the morning show, and you guys have a wonderful day.